that's been making the rounds on the internet. And it's been attributed to John Lennon, I think. And you may have seen it. It says, when I was 5 years old, my mother always told me that happiness is the key to life. So when I got to school, they asked me what I wanted to be when I grew up. So I wrote down happy. They told me that I didn't understand the assignment. And I told them that they didn't understand life. Now, this is, most likely not a quote by John Lennon. It's just a cheesy anecdote. But it is one of the most shared ones on the internet. It's been posted several million times. Why? Well, for one, because it does take a clever swing at authority, and we can all relate to that. But, it also gets at a deeper truth that all of us can intuit. Happiness really is the key to life. But, you might walk away with a pretty satisfied smirk on your face after reading this. Like, oh, hey, pretty clever kid. He showed them, didn't he? But what you probably don't ask yourself is how? How is he going to be happy? Because even if happiness is the key to life, it eludes pretty much all of us. So, while we're at it, let's ask the big scary question. What is happiness? Well, actually, maybe we should make it a little smaller because, it is only humanity's biggest question, and today is a Saturday. So, if I asked you, tell me about a time when you felt happy, what would you tell me? Perhaps you would tell me about that perfect day at the beach, or about the first time when you held your child in your arms, or, the day when you got that award that you worked 10 years for, or something as simple as just, savoring your favorite ice cream, or, I don't know, jumping out of an airplane. Well, actually, maybe that's not on everybody's list. So these things are all pretty different. There's a wide range of what we call happy. And we could use very different words for them as well. We can call them joy, euphoria, excitement, pleasure, bliss. So it turns out that this, there's quite a lot of nuance to this happiness thing. And the reason why there's so much diversity is because we have 4 different chemicals in our bodies that make us feel good. The first one is serotonin, and that's the most famous one, the one that's usually associated with happiness. And it's actually responsible for inner balance, for that sense of peace and sense of calm. Then you have oxytocin. That's called the love chemical. And you get it from touching, from hugging your loved ones, from laughing with your friends. Then there's endorphins, and that's your body's natural anesthetic. And when you exercise very vigorously, you get kind of that, that high, the runner's high. That's endorphins. And the last one is dopamine. That's the reward chemical. So, when you're accomplishing a task and you feel that sense of satisfaction, that's dopamine at work. And what's even cooler is that these chemicals mix up with each other and also with other chemicals that we produce in our bodies. And they produce this kind of cool, amazing hormonal cocktails. For example, if you take dopamine and oxytocin and you throw in some adrenaline, which is associated with fear, then you get crazy in love, or according to your ex, just crazy. So which one of these is happiness? Is it all of them? Can we maximize them? Can we just crank them up so that we feel like this all the time? And is this what happiness is? Is it just chemistry? Is it just a bunch of feel-good states? Before I attempt to answer some of these questions, I want to tell you why I'm so interested in this topic. 4 years ago, I had a complete rock bottom. And I had depression and I had PTSD. That's post-traumatic stress syndrome. And it sounds bad, and it was bad. I was absolutely miserable. and I was as far away from happiness as you can possibly imagine. And I decided I was going to throw all of my resources into getting myself out of this, dark place. And I did, and turns out, it put me on a very interesting life path, and I turned it into a career. That's a topic for a completely different talk. But the point is that I was doing so many things: therapy, alternative medicine, meditation, like you name it, I was doing it. And this stuff worked. I was feeling better and better. And at some point in my healing journey, I stumbled upon a state that I had never encountered before, at least not in my adult life. I felt this joy and this peace and this zest for life, and I didn't have to do anything for it. I would just wake up in the morning and I was in love with life. And I was completely confused. And so I went to my therapist and I was like, I feel absolutely amazing. What the hell is this? And he was like, well, you know, that's inner happiness, that one you've been reading about this whole time. And I was like, oh, really? I thought that was just something that they put on greeting cards. That's a thing? And he was like, yeah, it's a thing. And of course, I didn't believe him. I do have some trust issues, but good thing is I am in therapy. So I was like, okay, I'm going to research this. And I went to read accounts of monks, of yogis, of mystics from across all ages and across all faiths. Turns out it is a thing. They said it's a thing. So, they all talked about experiencing it and how they get to it. And I was still not convinced. So I was like, okay, I'm going to go to anthropology. There is this idea that, man had a sort of golden age, that there was this time when we lived kind of in a real garden of Eden, hunter-gatherer tribes, kind of the time before the agricultural revolution happened and everything went downhill. These people actually, lived in that primal human basic state. And I was like, okay, I'm going to read about these hunter-gatherer tribes, write about all kinds from different continents. Turns out they all had this, amazing zest for life and joy, and that was their kind of primal basic state. And finally, I was like, okay, so it's a thing. And I got so angry. I was like, how is it possible that I lived 35 years on this planet? This is supposed to be, the primal state of humanity. And it took a complete rock bottom, and it took dozens of hours of therapy and, meditation and all this hard work for me to end up feeling what was supposedly my birthright. Well, actually, if you think about it, it's not surprising that I hadn't felt it before. Society, the way it's designed, it's meant for us to chase happiness. From a very young age, we're constantly looking forward to the next toy, the next ice cream, the next party, your first car, your first promotion, your first love, whatever, goes on and on and on, and that's life. And we're constantly looking for rewards and looking for stimulation. And we're all kind of addicts in our own way. Even the kind of bliss that you get from meditation, even that's a state that we end up chasing. But this kind of inner happiness that I'm talking about, it's not the kind of happiness that you can get from chasing. It actually only shows up when you stop chasing. When you let go of all of society's programming, when you heal all of the shoulds and the have tos and the I'm not enough, when you finally decide, to completely belong to yourself, to love yourself exactly as you are, That's when this happiness shows up. So you're probably thinking, amazing. So you discovered this and now you feel this all the time. No. I mean, as much as I would like to say that I discovered some sort of nirvana, that's actually not how it works. Unless you're willing to give up on the world, live as a monk on top of a mountain, and spend your time in meditation, no feel-good state is meant to last. And it's not designed to. Happiness is not a destination. It's not going to happen when you get that degree, or when you sell the company, or when you marry the love of your life. It's not even going to happen when you love yourself fully. You don't get to happiness and stay there. Happiness is an ecosystem. What's an ecosystem? In biology, it's a bunch of organisms that are interacting together and with their environment. So your happiness ecosystem is made of a bunch of elements, the usual suspects: relationships, community, having a sense of purpose, having financial stability, having meaning, these guys. And here's the key insight. Ecosystems are in dynamic equilibrium. What that means is that they're constantly moving. There's an ebb and flow within ecosystems. And all of these elements within them are interdependent. And this means that you can't focus on any one of them and expect them to bring you happiness. You can't just say, I'm just gonna choose the lions in the savannah because they're kind of cool and I'm not interested in any of the other stuff. It's not gonna work. Your lions are not gonna thrive. They're not gonna do well at all because they need the gazelles and the grass and everything else in the savannah in order to thrive. And, at the same time, does this mean that we're constantly having to rush around to balance everything, going crazy like, oh, are the lions okay? And are the gazelles okay? And is the grass growing or doing whatever grass is supposed to do? No. That's the whole point of this dynamic equilibrium. It's constantly moving, it's constantly changing. So sometimes you will have more lions and sometimes you will have less, and sometimes the gazelles will have a phenomenal year, and maybe sometimes there's going to be a locust invasion, or even worse, there's going to be a pandemic. And then your ecosystem will suffer and you're going to feel pain. But pain is not the opposite of happiness. Pain is actually part of happiness. It's part of the ecosystem. And pain is an amazing alarm mechanism that is meant to show you when you're stuck, when things aren't going well. And it motivates us to keep moving, to grow, to look for a new equilibrium point, one where your relationships will be more fulfilling, and you will have more passion and a better sense of purpose, and your community will be more vibrant. And maybe some of you are thinking right now, you know what? Actually, I'm not interested in this whole happiness thing. I just want to be filthy rich. You know who you are? Here's how it works. Pretty much every single thing that any human does on this planet is in pursuit of happiness, except that we don't necessarily know that's what we're doing, at least not explicitly. We buy so much into what you want to be when you grow up that we end up devising these really complex ways to obtain happiness. For example, I'm going to become a doctor and I'm going to save a bunch of people and my parents will be very happy and then I'm going to be happy. Or, I know, I'm going to start a tech company and I'm going to become a billionaire and I'm going to ride in private jets and then everybody will admire me and then I'll be happy. Or, even worse, I know, I'm going to become a crazy dictator Then everybody will be afraid of me. Then I'm not going to feel so small and powerless anymore. And then I'm going to be happy. We get so caught up in the pursuit that we end up believing that's what we were after all along. What if we openly acknowledge that happiness is what we're actually after? What if every single one of you went home today and asked themselves the question, if that's what I'm after, how will I behave differently? You know, asking an open question like that can really completely change your horizons. Maybe you will invest more in your relationships, make time to listen to your partner more. Maybe you will read to your kids at night. Maybe you will finally quit the job that you hate and start that business that everybody tells you that is stupid. Or actually, quite on the contrary, you know, maybe finally you decide that you are actually not interested in startups and you were just doing it because, you know, everybody thought it was cool. And what you really want is a job that other people will find boring, but that's really satisfying to you. And you really want to just go fishing every Sunday. The effect that asking this question every single day for months and months will be astonishing. It will have a ripple effect throughout your whole ecosystem. It will have an impact on every single person in your life. And eventually, it will completely change the way you live, the way you love, the way you do business. And next time, when a smartass like me comes along and asks you, hey, so do you know what happiness is? You're going to be able to tell them, yeah, I know what happiness is. It's a life well lived on my own terms. Thank you.